You are listening to 100.9 FM WXIR in Rochester, New York.
Extreme Independent Radio.
Worldwide, you can find us online at 1009wxir.com.
Infiltrate Radio.
All right, welcome to Infiltrate Radio. Today is August 9th, 2018. This is episode number 15. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're bringing you new music, in-studio guests, and performances, and just overall making your Thursday evening just that much better. Isn't that right, Sarah?
That's right.
All right, tonight on the show, we'll have Danielle Raymo in studio to talk about her entrepreneurial endeavor, the Rochester Brainery here in Rochester, New York. They have a bunch of classes that you can sign up for. Some of which are done off-site at bars and things like that. It's really actually quite interesting. So we'll have her in studio here in a few minutes, but for now, here's some music for you. You are listening to 100.9 FM WXIR in Rochester, New York.
Extreme Independent Radio.
Worldwide, you can find us online at 1009wxir.com.
Infiltrate Radio.
All right, and we are back, and in studio with us is Danielle Raymo. Am I saying your last name?
Yep.
Correctly? From the Rochester Brainery, amongst probably other things you'd like to discuss, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I did say it correctly?
Yes, you did.
I think I've had every single guest that we've had, and I've completely screwed up
Either
there.
their first or their last name.
Yeah, one of the two.
Well, you got both this time. Congrats.
I wanted to bring you in because, one, we kind of run into each other and we kind of interact through classes, I've done at Muller's, and we ran into you at TEDx that day, and I thought you'd be a really interesting guest to have on the show just because of what you're doing there is super interesting. So for those just tuning in, this is Danielle Raymo from the Rochester Brainery on 100.9 WXIR Extreme Independent Radio. So I guess we can start maybe with there. Right. So
sure.
if that's, that you think that's a good place to start. So I see you opened in 2013.
Yes, we did.
In Rochester. Was that your first spot, like where you are now? Or
No, this is our second location.
Okay.
Our first spot was inside of Village Gate. And then 2 years ago, we moved to our current spot, a little over 2 years ago, actually.
Okay. So can I ask a question? So what prompted you to do like a learn? I don't even know what to call it. It's an adult. I hate saying that, like an adult learning center, but that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun.
Yes.
Like it's a fun.
It's supposed to just be for fun, yeah. So we have, kids can come too, actually, depending on the class. But we do have a lot of, in the summer, we'll have teenagers come to calligraphy classes, art classes, lots of things like that. Shibori dye workshop is really popular with kids and parents. Our fairy house making workshop.
Wait, come again?
What was it?
Shibori dye.
Shibori
It's
dye.
so fun. It is indigo dye, and there's a couple of versions of the class. One we do indoors, one we do outdoors, which is really fun to watch the colors change of the dye because of the sunlight.
So what are you dyeing?
So you're dyeing anything. So it could be a tote bag, it could be a table runner, it could be a scarf. People have brought pillowcases. It's really all different kinds of things. Courtney Craig is our teacher. She teaches you different techniques to it. At first glance, it's similar to like a tie-dye kind of thing.
Okay.
But the folds are a little bit different, and it's all blue indigo dye. And basically anything someone does.
Is it kind of similar to like you try and get patterns, almost like a mandala?
You do try and get patterns, not necessarily like a mandala. It's a little bit you can do like put pebbles in there and then wrap like rubber band around the pebbles to get like little small bits of like the indigo might not get that piece, things like that. It's interesting, and I don't know all the names of the folds and everything like that, but it's really fun, and everyone's pieces always turn out really great.
So that's something that kids could potentially get involved with too.
Yes. So this isn't really an original question, but it is not just necessarily for adults, although 99% of the people who attend are
sure. Sure. So what made you come up with the idea? Like, where did this come from?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Rochester, and I was working in Brooklyn for a company that is actually located in Geneva, New York. So I was kind of going back and forth. But I was living there and I was working in marketing and had the opportunity to have our farmer teach a class at this educational business. And I kind of saw that it was like everything that I loved. I, for a short time, went to school for education. And I do love education, but I did prefer a little bit more of a non-traditional kind of thing. And so this is, learning, but kind of, just for fun with no, you don't need to get accreditation or anything like that.
Yeah.
And certainly people will come to sometimes for work they need a number of hours in a particular field. We don't do like credit, but people will certainly have things signed, at the end of class to say that they've attended a class to meet some kind of criteria. Professional development hours kind of a thing. So anyway, I had that non-traditional approach. And for me, it kind of started in the way of where I love working with small businesses and marketing for small businesses. I actually do social media marketing as well. So it was kind of an opportunity for me to like combine all these different things that I loved. I was doing it. Oop, I just knocked this. I was doing events, talking with my hands here. I was doing events. I was doing, it was education. It was marketing, particularly for small businesses. And it combined everything that I loved. And so I had been wanting to move back to Rochester since I was traveling back and forth and kind of missing what was going on here. And was trying to say, find out, okay, what am I going to do next? What's my next career move? I think I was 26 or something at the time, 27. And so I was just trying to decide, okay, what am I going to do? I want to end up back in Rochester.
Right.
And anyway, it was I had the opportunity to kind of, work with a friend to open it up here, and it combined everything that I love to do. So it's been really fun.
So for those just tuning in, we've got Danielle Raymo from the Rochester Brainery here on 100.9 WXIR. So it kind of sprouted it from a class with a farmer, you said, that was teaching something. What was the class?
So it was there was two classes. One was the possibility of a rooftop orchard, basically, because
those are sprouting up in the city now,
Yeah.
like the rooftop
I've heard it.
stuff,
Yes,
or
I've
like
heard
those
of
little
that.
back alleys that are all over the place.
Well, at the time it was 2012, probably was 2011, 2012, and there was a lot of rooftop orchards. That was like the thing, I feel like, of that year, where everyone was like, "Oh, we have a rooftop orchard. Oh, great," and or not a rooftop orchard, a rooftop farm,
garden,
or
A lot of restaurants were doing that too.
Yes, exactly. And so but like putting heavier fruit trees or something like that on a rooftop is
it might not be the best idea. The
Yes.
roots start poking through apartments in the top.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, not all trees, I guess, are that heavy. But, just the possibility of doing something that was more of an orchard on a rooftop. That was a very interesting conversation. And it was it wasn't a how-to of how to do it. It was more of a conversation of, like, what would you need to think about? And, just what questions would you need to ask before doing something.
This was someone that was obviously skilled in doing this in the past, so he was just a local expert on. He was
a local farmer, but great farmer. And then there was another class on kind of growing, a fig tree or tomatoes or strawberries or anything.
I've never seen a fig tree. What does a fig tree look like?
It's probably small. It's probably like
they're
those
not huge.
Is it?
dead
Is it
bonsai
not
over
that
here.
small?
They're larger.
Sprouty.
Larger than that. The only one I've seen in person, I don't think was doing very well. So
Right.
I don't
It's like these little raisins.
Yeah, they're dry.
Yeah.
It's the raisin bush.
Yeah. But that was basically, you live in New York City, you maybe have a
Yeah.
small windowsill. So what can you grow that's going to, be able to live?
It's super interesting that we're talking about this too, because I was telling you before we started the show, Shaq Payne, and we started talking about college and how education, I think, is making this change, kind of like what happened with the music industry and and books and et cetera. It's using technology at this point to like completely shift how people are actually learning how to do things, and I kind of what you're doing and what you're talking about is what we were discussing last week too with him, how nowadays if you want to learn something, you don't necessarily have to go to school or have an Encyclopedia Britannica per se.
Sure.
Right? You can just specialize in this one particular thing and go out and seek and learn how to do that thing, and then learn from someone that's an expert in that field. Either whether it be on YouTube or wherever you're looking up classes, or through a center like yours, which is pretty innovative in my eyes, for where you actually get those experts into a building or even off-site. Because I noticed you guys are doing a lot more off-site classes at this point too, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what has been like the response to this locally? Because obviously you've been in business now since 2013, right? It says you've had 1,728 classes. I'm sure that number is bigger now that we're speaking since the last time you updated your website. But are people responding to it? I mean, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why we've been doing more offsite classes is because we've run out of space at our location to do classes. So we have 2 rooms. We can do 2 classes a night. And so the more offsite classes we can do, if we have a class that sells out all the time, for example, we can't have that be the only class in our schedule. So it's nice to be able to partner with other businesses to bring people to their locations, first of all, because a lot of the times when we host classes, people show up and they say, I've never been here before. Like, I didn't know that this spot was here. So the location, the business is a new experience, and the class is a new experience. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody in the room.
It really is. Like, I think that especially in instances where, you're getting people that are outside of the college, they don't necessarily want to go sit in a classroom, especially the bar type of situation where you can be like learning something and
be out,
potentially
at a
drinking.
location,
It's just a whole different, like, it's almost the ultimate like date night thing to do. And then you buy tickets or whatever, and it's the thing that you do for a few hours, and if you can drink while you're doing it, that's ideal too.
Do you remember what the very first class was?
Yes. So it was actually our improvisation workshop, which we still run to this day with the same teacher. It was actually our like preview night. It was like our opening party that we did. And we said, this is an open improv class. Anyone can join. It ended up running all night because people just kept on coming into the class. So Megan, who's actually a friend of mine I've known since middle school, is wonderful. And she just kept on, just kind of all evening running this improv class and doing all these different games and everything. And like I said, we have it once a month. We've been running it for 5 years, and it sells out almost every time.
Wow, that's great.
The improv class has been going on for 5 years.
Yeah.
Is it something progressive, or is it something where it's pretty much a similar class every time?
So it's a different. There's I want to say there's maybe 5 different versions of the class that she runs, 4 or 5. So they're a little bit different. Sometimes one of them is called. It's called like Yes, and then I'm trying to remember all the different versions of it, but anyway, so some of them focus on different things. Some of them might be more on the individual or partner, and that it makes it really great for like a team building workshop. Like, a lot of businesses will choose to do that class for a team building workshop, because improv at first,
keep that in mind.
Yeah, it seems like kind of scary at first, and a lot of people also come into the class thinking that you have to be funny, and you do not. It ends up being funny, but you really don't need to be funny. It just makes you think outside of the box, when you have to pretend to do a scene, with someone else, and pretend to be driving a car or something like that.
Yeah. So for those just tuning in, we've got Danielle Raymo here from the Rochester Brainery, and we're talking about some of the classes that you've had so far, and one of which is this improv class. And it's funny how like topics keep blending into each other.
Yeah, because we've had conversations from other people who are taking improv classes.
My sister-in-law in particular did an improv class, and we started talking about it with her, and she... Should we even bring up this story again?
No.
I didn't hear it.
I think Danielle needs to know this story. I think the listening audience wants to hear it again too. So she does this improv class, right? And in the end of it, they have to do this big performance in front of everyone.
Like a showcase.
Was it like a multi-week class kind of a thing?
Yeah.
She did that.
We kind of related it to like karate, where you earn belts or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but the backstory is that this entire year leading up to this class, she was having stomach issues. Major stomach issues the whole year. So
in particular, she mentioned this, and this is the only reason I'm repeating this. IBS, she was saying.
Yeah. So she started taking her improv class, and their showcase is in front of a huge audience, and they're going to do something off the cuff. So every single person will go up at the end, and you'll get a topic spit out from it's family and friends of all the people who are taking the class. So she goes up there and she's waiting for her topic, and somebody in the back of the audience yells out, "Diarrhea!" of all the things in the world that she could get. So
yeah, she was definitely having. She said she had problems that day.
Yeah,
she was like, it was so easy for me to get into the mind frame.
she's like,
of
how did they know?
One thing that's it's just so funny with me with improv too. I'm sure she learned this like over time too. But if you say like, "How do you hold a cell phone?" or like something like that. Like, I think, obviously this is radio, so people can't see what I'm doing, but you might, like...
But the thumb and the pinky,
the thumb and the pinky
the old
is,
phone.
like, not how you hold a phone. It would, be, like, kind of the full hand. And so it's just hilarious to just, like, tease Megan, be like, "Megan, how do you hold a phone?" And then hold it like this, and she's like, "No, that's not..." We, like, sent her a photo once, like, doing that. It's so fun, and it's just, like... Yeah, just these like things come up that are just so funny.
So you said the first class that you had there, right? And it gets one, you have repeated classes, obviously for like beginners or people who have never taken that class. But it sounds like not only do you do that, but it tends to spread out into like a multifaceted version of whatever that original topic is.
Yes.
So you can have repeat people coming back. Do you find that like especially in that class, you find the same people continually coming back?
Absolutely, because it's one of those classes too that is similar to like a calligraphy class or even the shibori dye class. Even if you've done it before, you're going to learn something new.
I'm going to need you to write that down too, so I know how to spell that. Shibori dye?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Before you leave.
Okay, I will. But yeah, all of those classes, you can take them over and over, and your project might be a little different. What you learn is going to be different. Your calligraphy skills are going to improve, that kind of a thing. But some people will... take these classes over and over again, just for practice. If you take a calligraphy class once a month, then at least you're setting aside 2 hours a month to practice something that you want to learn. You get practice sheets, you get pens, all that kind of stuff. So
I think that would be a really interesting class too.
Yeah, and there are a lot of versions of that class. We have, I think, 3 teachers currently that do different versions of calligraphy and lettering and everything like that.
So again, to those just tuning in here, we've got Danielle Raymo from the Brainery on. What was like is there a weirdest class so far that you've had, or a most
unique?
Yeah, unique or off the wall class that...
Yeah, I always get asked this question, and there's been nothing that would have given like me pause. Like, I don't know if we should do this class, but let's try it. But
maybe I should say this. You were surprised by it was such a response to this unusual class.
Well, I think for me, like we did a class on like haunted spaces in Rochester that the Monroe County Paranormal Society.
Ooh, I would love that.
Yeah, it's super fun. We are going to be doing it again in October of this year.
Oh, that's brilliant.
But that has been a super fun class.
Put that on the calendar.
And there's often classes that, like, I wouldn't book a class if I didn't think it was interesting. But you never know if other people are going to think that it's interesting too. Because a lot of times people aren't necessarily requesting classes from us.
Right.
They're kind of looking to see what we come up with. And we welcome people, like, their suggestions. Like, if you have something you want to learn, please let us know. But I find that a lot of people are coming to us because they want to learn something that they don't know about yet. And may have been a topic that's just never crossed their mind before, which is kind of cool. And so we get a lot of great suggestions from teachers that say, like, well, I know something about this subject. So we have we have someone who is working on a historical series that's going to be coming up. And I love that stuff. We don't have as much history stuff as like I would like. We've been doing stuff with the Landmark Society, walking tours.
Yeah, I saw something you posted recently about the walking tour.
Yeah.
So what is that? What's that composed of?
Yeah, so it's Landmark Society and Young Urban Preservationists are who do it. And Caitlin and Chris are the 2 teachers. And so basically what they do is if you've ever been on a Landmark Society tour, you get to like go inside houses and things like that. They do these like little half an hour lunch walks throughout the summer in different places. This is like a 2-hour long version of a historical walk. You don't go inside buildings, but the one that we did last night was so cool. It was the history and development of Neighborhood of the Arts, which is the neighborhood that Rochester Brainery is in. And we walked all over the city, talked about buildings, who lived in the buildings, how the area developed, why it developed, railroad, streetcar, all the industrial
really cool.
buildings.
Yeah, that's
it was
very
so
interesting.
cool, like why the public market was downtown. And then they moved it to where it was in 1905. And I had no idea that the original East High School was on off of East Main Street, kind of near Rappa in that area. And so it was just really interesting.
So do you find yourself going to some of these classes just because you're I really want to learn
Yeah,
whatever this thing is? And
any
you
of
end
the
up in
historical
class?
ones, I'm in.
Yeah.
So you're a bit of a history buff?
Yes, but I don't remember. I will take the class, and that's kind of why I love Instagram stories, because I'm writing it down.
Right.
I'm I have to post this for the business, but also so I can watch
remember.
this a
Yeah.
few times so I remember. But I love that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's really awesome. So again, just for those tuning in here, we've got Danielle Raymo from the Rochester Brainery, and we're talking about some of the classes that she's got going on here and in the past. So let me ask you this, because not only is it interesting because you're, you've got these classes, it's a very interesting business in my eyes, like a business model. You said you have a partner?
I did when we first started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a business person, obviously you started something that there's not a lot of businesses out there, I guess, aside from colleges or what have you, to kind of emulate how to make that a business,
Sure.
a successful business and keep the rent paid and the lights on
Sure.
and things like that. So I would assume that you're kind of learning as you go, right?
Oh, yeah.
Were there big mistakes in the beginning that you've learned now?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. The first 3 months of the business, we were oh. Well, because it was one of those things where we opened in March, and by the time, anybody knew about us, it was the summer. And our summers are consistently slower than the winter time because people are just looking for something to do indoors. Our busy season is December through, this year it was through April because April was colder than usual.
Yeah.
But it's usually December, January, February, March, and summers have gotten busier every single year. But especially that first year, we assume, well, no one wants to take classes, kind of a thing, which wasn't the case. It was just people didn't know about us, and summers are slower, and that was a bad combination. But we got through it, and then it started to pick up again in the fall, and has just kind of grown ever since, which is nice. So there was definitely that learning experience, and then just the learning experience of just your general day-to-day business things and the best way to handle everything. Our backgrounds are in marketing, I don't have a business degree.
Yeah.
So I certainly asked a lot of questions and had a lot of help, but there's, you can't learn everything.
That seems to be the case too with a lot of entrepreneurs, is that
Yeah.
they don't really have the degree, let's say, to
Yeah.
be I've got a business degree, so that's where I'm going to go into
Right.
some sort of a business, and then they decide on the business. It's more oh, this really interests me. I'm going to go and just do this, and then I'll figure out all the business stuff after.
Yeah,
after the fact.
Yeah, and we had a business plan, and we met with people ahead of time that knew business, but they're not holding your hand the whole way. When
Right,
you're
and
making
this is
decisions.
a different business model also because it's not
Yeah.
your typical business plan. It's
Oh, it made it
classes
so
and-
tricky.
Right, and then probably after that first year when you realize that there was a lull in the summer, you're okay, now I got to figure out what to do in the summer.
Exactly.
Outside stuff. What can we pull people outside with? So
Yeah.
you have all those walking kind of classes now and the
Yeah.
history classes and they'll keep adding stuff on.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the reasons why we started our Brainery Bazaar. We opened in March, and then I think in May of that year, we started our Brainery Bazaar because we said we just need something to bring people in here consistently.
Mm-hmm.
If they are not taking a class, we need something to bring them in consistently and to be able to meet the people that we're working with and kind of get to know them and get to know the space.
So for those that don't know, so we're in Rochester, New York. So anyone visiting potentially
Yes.
could come and visit the Brainery. So
Yeah.
can you explain what the bazaar
Yep,
is?
it's our craft show that we do the second Saturday of every month. And so we have different local artists that come in, and we'll have some food vendors, like a food truck will usually come up, which is nice. We'll have vendors inside, outside when it's, nice out. And then in December, we do a 2-day holiday bazaar as well, which is usually in partnership with Yelp. So
When is that?
we do
You
a
said
lot
in
of
December?
that. In December, yeah. And that's like the largest one. It's usually a combination fundraiser with them and different, charitable organization every year. And then we'll have, different businesses come in and sell their, handmade goods and things like that as well.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. So let's ask this. So one, we're for those just tuning in again, I gotta shout out the station. I apologize, but you're listening to WXIR 100.9 Extreme Independent Radio, and we've got Danielle Raymo from the Rochester Brainery on, and we started talking a little bit earlier too about your background a little bit. So on this show, we don't necessarily stay on topic of what the original reason for having you on is. So we'll start maybe with this. We'll go into the background that we spoke about in the past, and maybe we'll continue on the podcast. But we met at TEDx recently, right? So, and was that your first time at a TEDx event?
No, it wasn't actually. I think it was maybe my third or fourth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you? Was that you were just attending, or were you actually participating as a?
I was just attending.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in the past, did you also, was it just attendance? Because that was my experience too.
Yeah.
These are one of these few events where I really just wanted to go and have other people really like have these really intense ideas, because on stage there's stuff going on, and in the crowd when you just start talking to people, you start to get like conversations going on with people that are doing things, and it really for me it's stimulating to be in an environment like that.
Yeah.
Recently, this most recent one, do you have any memories of that TEDx that stand out for you?
Oh, there was a lot. There was a lot that I really liked, but the one that I thought was really interesting that kind of made me say like, oh, what can Rochester Brainery do? How can we partner with them? And of course I'm gonna forget her name, but she was developing that farm.
Oh, I remember her. Yep, because of her brother.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was kind of an educational living space, it seemed, on the farm, and I was like, that is just really cool.
Maybe I'll try and post it if I can find it. So that was her brother was autistic, right?
Yeah.
And so she started a whole farm
Where he could work and he could be outside and
it kind of helped. Yeah, that one was super impactful. I remember Shaq too pretty well,
Yeah.
because I'm a poet and I write myself too, so that's why I had to have.
You know what the
Yeah, that
funny
was
thing
great,
about when he was here last week was how he said he was so nervous when he came out, but I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
he said I was so nervous, but
Oh my gosh.
It's a pretty intense crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to go out and deliver to a bunch of people, because your assumption is, I think, when you got on stage, I don't know if you're ever a performer or anything, like are you a musician or a
singer.
Okay, so you've performed in front of a crowd. Like, I kind of judge the audience I'm about to perform to when I'm about to go out.
Yeah.
So that audience is filled with like people who have a lot going on and are I guess you can say intelligent, but they're really just doing things and into a whole bunch of different stuff. So it's got to be somewhat intimidating, especially in that type of audience to go out there.
it was interesting to hear him say how nervous he was, because I would never expect him to say anything like that, because he seemed so poised and so just ready. And he went out there and it was just fantastic. And then he was
you know what they had. That
What's
maybe
that?
might be an idea for a class too. He was talking about there were coaches.
Yeah. Well, didn't they say that he was a coach as well?
I don't know. Maybe he's
14?
done that, or maybe in the
maybe
past
he's coached
he has
other
done
people,
They
but he
mentioned-
had a coach, and that coach worked with him and one
Okay.
other person.
like how to
okay.
deliver
Right, yeah.
a TED talk.
A
essentially.
powerful-
Oh,
yeah.
I see. Yeah. No, that's great. And all the TED Talk speakers are amazing. So when we were in our old space, we did have one of the TEDx organizations locally that kind of used our space as a rehearsal space. And that was just so like cool to meet everyone that was coming in for their talks, and to kind of like, just like how they worked really, really hard to make these, talks really great. They put a lot of effort into it. I give them,
Did you feel like you've seen them all before you got to the actual TEDx
No,
event? And then
no,
you're like,
I
"Damn
didn't.
I already saw this.
No, luckily we were in the lobby, so
There
we
was
just
still
got
some
to
surprises.
meet everyone coming in. Yeah.
Excellent. So for those just tuning in here, we're talking to Danielle Raymo from the Rochester Brainery, and I think what we're going to do is continue the conversation that we had on what you were doing prior to the Brainery here on the podcast, and you can download that podcast on your favorite podcast mechanism, and just search for Infiltrate Radio Podcast. And for those on FM here, enjoy some music, and Danielle, we'll talk to you here in a second.
All right. Thank you.
All right, we're back.
Welcome to podcast.
Welcome to podcast world now. So we were talking earlier. First of all, we're drinking some
Yes.
ciders here. What do you think about that? So for every week, every Tuesday, we're drinking some crazy shit here. We happen to have
Zombie killer.
Chris Lindstrom from on, and I had bought some random whiskey in a
Yeah.
liquor store that comes in like these paint thinner cans.
Okay.
It looks like
Bizarre.
It was not delicious
Oh,
at all.
no.
He did not care
Really?
for it at all, but he was a good
Yeah, I
player, and he drank both of them,
Yeah.
even though he just did not like them. But
It
he
was kind of
That's funny.
a tough move because it was like this flavor. It was like flavored with a liqueur
Yeah.
or whatever. And then I looked up the Instagram account
Yeah.
for this liquor after we had drank it, and it was all like people in bikinis and stuff jumping into pools and drinking it. So it was all like college kid,
Yeah.
like theme stuff. And he's
Not
a big
the vibe
he's
here.
a big foodie,
Yeah.
like super
Yeah.
into
He
food.
was-
So
yeah.
it was not.
he was like offended by the flavor. He's like, oh.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
But this is,
Great.
I think this is a little bit better, and it's kind of interesting. They're all like, this is Graft cider out of, where is it? Newburgh, New York. And you started drinking the
Field and Flowers.
Gose. How do you say that?
Gose?
Gosa?
Go say rose.
Gose
Rose.
Rose. Gose Rose.
I think it's Gosa.
Gose
Gosa.
Rose.
That's how you pronounce it, because
But I
there's
feel
a
like
Gosa
for
beer too.
I feel like they would want you to say Gose Rose though,
Oh,
So it
maybe.
rhymes, yeah.
because
yeah. I
the
see.
alliteration.
Look at you.
Alliteration.
So it might be Gose Rose.
Gose Rose.
So what do you think of it?
I really like it.
It's a
I
little
think it's good.
sour. It's a little.
It is, and I usually am not a fan of sours. But I do like this. I do
Yeah.
really like rosé, so
Yeah, I'm not a fan of sours either, and I do like rosé, and this is good.
yeah.
This guy's a little
like it a
calmer,
lot.
this citrusy mimosa one. So Graft cider, really, actually very good.
I like it.
And I guess there's a hashtag on the back, future cider
Oh,
is the hashtag for it. But pretty good. So before
Yeah.
this, something we found out right before we started talking
Mm-hmm.
was that you were in radio before.
Yeah.
So when did
yeah.
that? So you were in New York, and then you came back, right? You were down
Well-
in the city in Brooklyn. You came back. So it was before that.
It was before that. Yes. So it's actually kind of the reason that I moved to New York was to continue to work in radio. So I had originally gone to school for vocal performance with the intention of going to school for music theater, and ended up deciding to go for music education. I had a back injury. It was like the theater thing isn't going to work for me at the moment. So
Right.
anyway, I decided to kind of refocus and do education, music education. And when I was doing music education, I realized that necessarily wasn't like for me. I enjoyed the performance aspect more. And so when I was going to MCC, I had started an internship at WBER as part of, my degree there. And I had always really loved radio and thought, this is like something that I would love to work in as well. And I kind of was like, it's kind of theatrical in a way, depending on
right?
where you're working and whatnot, and talking to people. And so I had been volunteering at a radio station for many years, and when I decided that music ed wasn't necessarily for me, I was like, okay, all right, let's think of something else. And I was like, well, I'm working in radio, and it's like my favorite place to be. So why don't I just finish on my degree in this? So that's what I did.
Huh.
Yeah.
So, and then when you moved down to New York City, obviously New York City, I grew up in Queens myself, and I actually met Sarah
Oh, nice.
down there because you had moved down there.
I did. Yep.
But it's definitely a tough city. Like people
Yeah.
don't necessarily realize how tough it is when you
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're down. I don't know when you were down there. Recently, it's definitely got. I feel like it's gotten a little softer around
Okay.
the edges,
Sure.
at least. Somewhat, I guess.
That's debatable.
Debatable.
That's debatable.
But like, what was your experience when you moved down there? So you went down there specifically to like get into
Yeah.
radio in some way?
Yeah, well, so I had been working. After college, I had gotten hired at a local radio station as their promotions coordinator and also working on air. First on air, and then went into the promotions coordination role. And so my husband, boyfriend at the time, but was switching jobs, and his job was going to be in Jersey City. And so I was like, well, this could be like a really good opportunity for me to go to a larger market, which was a little jump in markets. But so anyway, I was like, cool, I'll
A little bit
move
from like
down.
WBR, right?
And then I was at the Zone, and so I was like, okay, let me just jump.
I mean, honestly,
to-
the Zone's like a bigger.
Oh yeah,
radio station,
yeah. And so I was like, well, I'll be a promotions coordinator for a station in New York. Anyway, so I didn't get any interviews even. I volunteered for a radio station actually down there. And then got to do some fun stuff with this. It was called the Artsy Fartsy Show, which was kind of cool. I got to go to a steampunk convention, which was awesome. My favorite
nice.
band was playing, and I had interviewed them previously at BDR.
Did you dress up in steampunk outfit?
I didn't.
No?
I didn't have anything like particularly
Come on,
steampunk, but
Danielle.
it was cool because I got to interview this band for like the second time, and they were my favorite, and I was so excited. But anyway, so that was very
you did
cool.
some like on air stuff, so the interview was
did.
on air. Oh, nice.
Yeah, well, that was like a pre-recorded thing, but I was on air at BER and the Zone as well.
So what part of Brooklyn were you? You said you moved down to Brooklyn.
We lived
right?
in Carroll Gardens,
Okay.
which we really loved, and yeah, it was awesome. We moved in at the end of 2010,
All right.
and then ended up moving for like the last year to Jersey City, and then I kind of commuted back and forth to Rochester. Opening Rochester Brainery.
Wow. From Jersey City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
a
Well,
long
so we
drive.
decided when we moved down in 2010, we were looking at places in Jersey City and looking at places in Brooklyn, and we kind of landed on living in Brooklyn, and it was like an hour commute for my husband each way. And so when we were kind of like, we think we eventually want to move back to Rochester, and I was starting to open the Brainery, it didn't really make sense for us to keep on living in Brooklyn, and our rent was going to go up, and we were looking for other places, and we were only finding places further and further out. And so we were just like, okay, all of a sudden you have an hour and 45-minute commute. This doesn't make sense. Like, let's look at Jersey City.
So what's the biggest thing you miss from living down in either in Brooklyn or in Jersey City there?
My favorite dessert. I know that sounds so weird.
No, it doesn't sound weird.
But-
So the bakeries and stuff down in the
Well,
city are significantly.
They are.
They're at a level because
They
there's
are.
so much competition that they have to be at like a level.
It's
100.
one particular dessert from one particular restaurant. It's called Frankie's. It's an Italian restaurant, and they have the best. It's like red wine, prunes, and mascarpone cheese, and usually I'm like a double chocolate cake, like chocolate everything person, but it's my favorite dessert in the world.
Where, this is in Brooklyn or it's in?
Well, there's
Jersey
one
City.
there's one in Carroll Gardens, and there's one. Oh, there's one in Manhattan too. That's been open for a while too. But anyway, so anytime we go to the city, like I think the last
That's where
time
you
we
gotta
went
go.
there, we went twice because I was like, okay, let's go again.
I always got to get bagels. It's something
Oh,
like I
yeah.
grew up on New York City bagels, and like every time I go there, I have to eat.
Yeah, it's not
and
even.
I end up like shoveling like 4 of them into my mouth.
It's not even any of the food stuff. I just remember traveling was so easy. Just get on the train. Just,
Yes.
even at 4:00 in the morning, just sitting on the, just the travel was so easy.
So, and I'll tell you guys this. So, growing up there, you become so accustomed to that ease of like getting from point A to point B without a car, that when I moved upstate, it was kind of like a culture shock
Yeah.
to like not every city has that kind of public transportation, and getting used to like the car culture was a big thing for
I
me.
remember you also saying how there was too much sky. Like you could see too much sky.
Yeah, it does freak
because
me out a
the
little.
buildings are so much shorter, and you're like, there's too much
Yeah.
quiet and
Yeah.
sky.
There's no stars down
Yeah.
in New York City. There's no,
Yeah.
I grew up in Jackson Heights, like just right near JFK. So planes would literally
Oh,
be
yeah.
100 feet over my house every night, every 10 minutes going over. So
Yeah.
Sarah knows this. I'm trying to get my sleep back in order. 'Cause
Oh, right.
It's terrible because I have to sleep with some sort of like real loud noise going on.
Yeah, I really liked the noise of the city, and that was, and the transportation as well was like a huge thing. So that's played a big part into where we've lived since we've moved back, and where we live now. So I can like walk to the Brainery, and so we just have one car. And
There's
it's
something
so nice
there's
being
something
able to do
calming
that.
about all those people being around you where like
Yeah.
as soon as you're in that place where it's just too quiet,
Right.
it's like
Do you
there's something
think? Do you
spookier
think
about
that it's
that. than-
because if something like if you passed out, there would always be somebody right next to
Yeah.
you, no matter where you
Yeah, them-
are?
No one around for days.
Because I've seen videos of people who
Although-
were falling into like the train tracks and somebody was pulling them out.
the train tracks, but anywhere else, and I don't think anyone would care really that you passed out. They'd be like, this
But
guy's
there's
drunk.
enough tourists there
Sure.
that they would pick you up. I
Yeah.
feel like there's so many people from all over the place, and if you fell, if you tripped, somebody from Milwaukee who was visiting would pick you up, no matter what. But
I could-
here, if
Someone
you
would
fell
know.
outside,
Yeah.
nobody's. What's that guy doing in the driveway?
So when you were at WBER
Yeah.
and the Zone, so you were on air.
Yes.
So what did you do
Yeah.
there? Were you doing music? Were you doing?
Yeah, music. So at BER, I started off as an intern. So then I worked during the day usually. And then I started doing, I had an evening show on Saturday nights. And then I started, I took over the show First Impressions when the longtime host of that stopped doing that. I did that show for a little while, which was very cool because I got to hear, new music from lots of different bands and kind of, pick out songs to put on the show.
Who was the prior?
Jeff Kirschrock.
Okay.
I might be saying his last name wrong, but he did that. I think someone else did it, previous to him, but he had done it for a really long time, if I'm not mistaken. So I did that show, and then I was on the Friday morning show as well, which is their morning show. And then when I moved back from New York, I did the Friday morning show for a little while too.
Oh, you
which
actually
is
came
really
back.
fun.
So like as your like move back job.
Those and it, it's volunteer, and it was like nothing more fun than getting up and going at like 5 a.m.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they used to always tease me because they'd be like, "How many of these shows do you miss?" I swear, the car I was driving at the time was very unreliable. I think on like 2 or 3 occasions I was like, "My car won't start," and they were like, "Okay," and I was like, "No, really, I'm getting towed." Sent me a photo. But yeah, that was really, really fun doing that. And originally, when I was doing radio, I wanted to do a morning talk show.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing transition in radio right now too, is going from trying to figure out like, okay, yeah, you're playing music, but yeah, everyone can listen to music through Bluetooth on their phone now. So to listen to the radio for new music is not happening anymore. The biggest shows with the biggest ratings are all talk radio, like shows that go on for 4 hours,
Sure.
talking that people just listen to, and there's these almost like stories that go on throughout it. I think there's a big change, which is kind of what we're trying to do here, is hence the Infiltrate radio.
Yeah.
Mantra is that, all right, we have this thing that's going on the radio, and they've asked us to play music with it too. But if you really want to hear the guts and insides of the show, it's listen to the podcast that goes long form. So I'm hoping that at some point they're like, yeah, go ahead and put all that on air, But there's these huge transitions and stuff that's just been the mainstay of like schools, like education, like radio or like music. So how does being an entrepreneur and working for yourself now, because there's a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs, they want to start their own business, right? And there's this allure about it and a kind of magic fairy dust around, you're an entrepreneur, you're working for yourself, right?
Sure.
How does that compare to working for someone else? And do you sometimes miss working for someone else being the boss per se?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I actually like both of them equally. I I didn't not like working for some, like a lot of people who are entrepreneurs are like, I really didn't like having some, I wanted to be my own boss. Like that's not what it was about for me. It was more just about like what I thought I could offer, small businesses and the community for the business. It was never about being my own boss necessarily. So yeah, I mean, there are days that I miss just, being able to go about my day and not have, like, I couldn't go a day without having my phone because who knows, like any emergency could happen at any time. So there are certainly days that go by or a vacation that, I might want to be, totally put away my phone. That's just like, it's not an option.
Yeah.
So there are certainly times where I'm like, yeah, I wish I just had a regular
like
job
a
and
9
this
to
was
5.
just a weekend, and that kind of a thing. But, yeah, but then I wouldn't be meeting all the awesome people that I mean, maybe I would, depending on the job, but I meet a lot of really cool people.
So the new building that you're in too, because we had kind of talked about this. I know you had some challenges with that, and you were doing some construction and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like how was adjusting to that? Because that was something kind of new for me too. When we opened up Muller's, was like going in and trying to manage like construction people and things you have no real experience with, dealing with the construction, the banking stuff that's behind it, the business, the books, especially with us too. I had to deal with the SLA, all the city permits, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, did you find you went naturally from marketing and radio into like that?
No, not at all. Well, I mean, I'd only lived in apartments, right? Like I'd never like had a need to do, to work with anyone on construction, permitting, or anything, And so the most construction I've done is like paint a wall, like, somewhere. So
I'll tell you what, Danielle, I actually avoid that as well.
Yeah.
As much as I could possibly avoid painting.
Yeah.
I avoid it.
Oh, yeah. And so, basically, I mean, I definitely was at the permit office in the city like just about every day for 2 weeks, and they were amazing because I just had a million questions. I had no idea what I needed, and I was like, please tell me what I need to do.
That's pretty much the story of Muller's too. The same deal.
Yeah, I'll be honest. So like I grew up in Queens, right? So every public thing, whether it be the DMV, whether it be you're just going to get your license. That's probably the DMV too, right?
Renewed.
License renewed or a passport or whatever it is just a nightmare because there's so many people there, and that's all you do. Like if you have to go to the DMV to deal with a ticket, that's your entire day is gone, right?
Just pay the ticket.
What's way different here is that like I've gone to the DMV and there's no one in line.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Right,
There's
so you
no
go
one
into
in
the
line
permit
at the
offices
DMV.
here, and you're going to speak to somebody within.
That's what surprised
right
me is
away.
that
And they're helpful.
they're actually helpful.
Super
Yes.
helpful.
Yes.
Which is surprising. Like I've actually it's not this counter, and they don't just kind of dismiss you.
They're awesome. Yeah.
It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but I've had to learn all that stuff because that stuff I'm terrible at. The paperwork stuff.
Well, and also
Sarah's great at that.
I'm great at paperwork,
terrible at it.
and I have worked
Terrible
in
at
housing for so long and dealt with contractors and construction that you should have really let me be there because I would have fired people. I've been like, you're out, because I'm on people like.
Yeah.
Every single person needs to prove that they're going to do their job to me. That's the way that I run it. But
it's a good way to be, because otherwise, you're like, wait a second.
They will try to get away with everything that they can possibly get away with. They don't show up. They're supposed to be there at 9. They show up at 11.
Yes.
They bill you for those 2 hours that they were sitting at home. It's
the hourly rate is.
I started my time from the time I left my house.
So I noticed myself too. So we have to sign my kids, and this is how bad I am at paperwork. This is an example of how bad for those listening. So as I start to fill out a form, my handwriting starts to become just trailed off scribbles at the end, where it's literally up and down.
My entire form is like, honestly.
So it's filled out with some sort of ink on there, but there's no actual information.
The paperwork stuff is not difficult for me. It all makes sense. It's all put together. It's like the only control I have in my life is these documents that are in their order.
Well, it's like when you apply for your, DBA or whatever, like no one hands you a handbook that says like, great, this is the field, like the business type that you are. These are all of the boxes that you need to check.
And
Right.
for you too, it's such a different business. Like what?
Oh yeah.
Like there had to have been stuff where you're like, I have no idea.
Well,
what-
and even
what
when
we're
I
supposed to-
was calling, to get insurance or whatever, they were like, "What are you?"
Yeah, I don't understand what that is.
Like what? And so sometimes it was like just talking to someone who like the business idea clicked, because there was a while in the beginning too where people would stop in and they would say like, "What is this place?" Like a tutoring, and I'm like, no, and it sometimes took like a while. You teach classes on everything, so like art, no, like everything, not just different kinds of art classes, like everything. So yeah, in explaining the business to some of the insurance and other things that we needed, sometimes it was a bit of a longer explanation than just saying like, we're going to be a restaurant serving alcohol or whatever, where it might be a little bit more straightforward.
Well, I'll tell you what. Try explaining to the SLA that you're a cider bar.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's not even a category. They don't understand what
Yeah.
that is. That was a whole other.
Yeah.
Wait, what? We're
Yeah.
like, do we need this? Do we need the whole thing, or can we? What is cider considered? We don't know what cider is.
Oh, right. Yeah, there was.
Really?
It was pretty.
They don't,
wow.
Cider's not a category.
was challenging.
It's not a category.
So the logo I really did
Yeah. Oh,
of the
cool.
Brainery
Thank
too.
you.
By the way, so where did the name of the Brainery come from? Was that just a?
Well, so the business in Brooklyn's Brooklyn Brainery.
Oh, okay.
And so I had, kind of talked to them about opening Rochester Brainery as well. But my sister designed the logo.
Huh.
And we had kind of designed it in a way where we wanted it. I kind of had this like idea of this like glowing neon brain, like learning. I don't know. And so
It's a good.
yeah, and so my sister was like, "Okay, here
I'll
you
just
go."
draw a brain. Here
Yeah,
you go.
so she did that, and it kind of like traces like Brainery in there in like a weird way if you were to like look at the logo.
Oh, really?
I honestly, okay, this is a funny story. I had no idea that she did that. And then we've been open for a couple months, and a couple
So
people
like
are
the
like,
squiggles of the
yeah, they were
brain.
like,
Oh,
they were
it
like,
says brain in the
yeah,
squiggle.
they were like, that's so cool that like you did that, and I was like, I don't think we did that, and I'm like, Jessica, did you do that? And she was like, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you totally did that. That's
Like,
what
I
it
didn't
is.
know. So yeah, so like we have a neon brain sign in the space now, which we didn't have for like the first 3 years, but like that was always like my dream to have that like neon brain. So we moved in the new space, we got it. I was like, our logo is like now to
It's now
life.
official.
It's like a thing
There's
now.
something with that neon sign because we got a neon apple.
That's
oh,
true.
A
Yeah.
neon apple.
It
It's something
works.
about the, I don't know what it is.
So-
Yeah.
So are there more Braineries in the country, or is it?
No, I don't believe so. There was like some other Brainery that like popped up on like Instagram that I saw not too long ago, but I don't exactly know. There are other similar businesses though across the country, and they all run differently. So some, like, we have a location and we focus just as much on events as we do our classes, and others just do classes. Some don't have a location. They exclusively work with other businesses, maybe a co-working space or bars, restaurants, that kind of a thing. So there are other places similar to ours. A lot of them are co-working during the day and then have classes in the evening. So they run in all different ways. Yeah.
Have you? So I'm thinking about this like evolution of education and where you guys fit into that, and I'm wondering, is there, like, where do you see the Brainery or sorry, headphones cut out. Everyone just freaked out for a second. Like the world just ended. But like, so where do you see the Brainery evolving to? Because what I'm kind of seeing is like, all right, well, there's YouTube where you can follow like certain things and subscribe to a particular topic or whatever, and then you can follow that path. Do you have people asking, like, do you have what is that called? Is it matriculate? No.
Matriculate?
Matriculate.
Matriculate?
Is that the word?
I don't know what you're thinking.
So
of.
like where you actually follow like a major.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, we haven't done anything like that. Yeah.
Where you have, like you get an accreditation of
Sure.
some sort. Because honestly, like colleges, most of them are private, right? So while you have to have, in order to get an official college degree, I'm sure it's sanctioned in some way by the state or the
Yeah.
federal government, right? But for someone like an employer, like myself, right? If I wanted someone certified in cider, right? There may not be necessarily a college class that has that accreditation, but if I see, okay, they went through, 6 brainery classes and they have this certification from, even if it's just from you guys saying they went through and fulfilled such and such, I would feel more comfortable as an employer saying this person probably knows what they're talking about at this point, more than just some random person I'm hiring. Almost like it's like trade school, but for the new type of economy that we're in, which isn't based on like, making things in a factory, but like things that are coming out of people's minds, right? Like building websites or whatever the case may be, a craft of some sort, right? I don't know. It's just something, I don't know if that ever crossed your mind as something where it would evolve too, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we certainly have a lot of different classes that like revolve around a similar area. The accreditation thing, would need to be like state, I think, like approved. It could be like a certificate for the class or something that said they like took that class or that kind of thing. Yeah. We just haven't really done that. I think most of the reason is because a lot of our classes are a little more 101 level. We don't necessarily have a lot that's like 102 or 103 or that kind of a thing. But certainly if anyone was to put like a class on their resume or something like that, we could certainly confirm that they took the class. That's for sure.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that would be an interesting thing, like especially with these new businesses that are popping up, like coffee houses, right? Like coffee shops. I'm sure if you didn't have to train someone from scratch on the basics of how coffee is roasted, where it comes from, how to make a proper espresso, all that kind of stuff. And you just have some barista that's really good at it, really passionate about it, teaching that thing, right? And then you can hire people that have, I took this class.
Sure.
I think there's value in that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I do too. I think there's value in taking the classes and learning for sure. And there's no reason why a lot of those skills can't be transferred to valuable job skills.
Yeah.
So,
that reminds me of Starbucks school.
It does, right? Because they kind of have that.
They would give you that.
They don't kind of have that. They have that.
Have
They
they
have
give
coffee
you
school.
a book, a passport book, and you have to go through Starbucks school in order to learn about the flavors of all the coffees and how to.
But when I'm looking at it as a business owner, right, the value of someone going out and saying, I'm going to go out and train myself on such and such topic, right? And then come to you as the employer, and you don't have to train me on most of it. Yes, your specific business, you'll have to train me on the point of sale and so forth. Is value that just isn't being delivered by colleges, because a lot of time people will go to college, they don't know why they're going in there other than to like live away from their parents, right? And they major in something that they don't end up really wanting to do by the end of the when they actually graduate college. I just think even if it's not the brainery itself that ends up doing that, I think I see like this path being developed by like YouTube channels and things like the brainery where there's training that's happening, like trade training for the intellectual businesses that are coming out.
So here's a question then. In 5 years, where would you want the brainery to be? If you could just, snap your fingers and this is what it's doing, what would the goal be?
$12 million a year in sales.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
Then hopefully we could just offer classes like, I don't know, some free classes.
Once a month.
And no, I mean, I really would love to be able to offer some more classes for free. But honestly, I think for me it's continuing to work with different community partners and new businesses to like help them kind of get their name out and doing just more and more classes and offsite and not necessarily just like we do classes at our location, but we've started to do classes with some businesses in like Webster and things like that. So just like, and a lot of our business partners that we have are like right in the city as well, which is like wonderful. But just kind of having classes a little bit like at maybe a restaurant that people haven't visited somewhere else. So like we've done some classes in some parks that some people like haven't been to, like if you live in Webster, maybe you haven't been to like a certain park in Greece or something like that. So just kind of like giving people, we've done a class at like Braddock's Bay. So just getting people to go to different, more so like landmarks and areas like around the city too, like we tried running a class in Naples, New York at a farm, which unfortunately didn't run, but like I thought that would be really cool to go out to a farm in Naples and like get a tour and get to see it, and you could spend the day and it could be like a little bit more of an experience, and while you're out there you can take a class. So anyway, I'd love to be able to do some more things like that.
And I think
as
that's
well.
it's so much more impactful too when you're in something like when you sign up for a class. Sometimes people don't want to necessarily go to school because it's boring school.
Or they don't
you
want
go
to
to
be
a class, you
for
sit
long term,
Yeah.
like a long term thing, which
Yeah.
is, I was thinking as
'Cause
you were
there's-
talking about kid classes,
Yeah.
bringing in, because like for instance in my kids, they'll be interested in something for a minute.
Yeah.
So 1 or 2 classes would be more than enough for them of something really cool and interesting. So maybe here's a suggestion to think about
Yeah.
incorporating, children in a way, because they have attention spans of fleas, but for them to
I
come
think
in
they might get that from me.
or me, but for them to come in for one class,
Sure.
would be something, and all parents are like, I need something for my kids to
Yeah.
do. They're not committed to, an entire year of whatever.
Well, and that's something that we've consistently tried to do kids classes, and very few times do they actually run, unfortunately.
And that's because people don't sign up?
Yeah,
or-
we have a 6-person minimum to run. And so usually we don't hit that 6-person minimum. We did for the second time. The first class we did was a kids improv class, because our improv workshops are 18 and up. You just never know what people are going to say.
Yeah, so you-
But we did have one that was for kids, which was fun, but a little crazy, because kids just have a lot of energy, and then you
Yeah,
ask them to
yeah.
pretend to be like a machine or something like that. It was funny, but and then we did another one that was a tapestry weaving workshop, which was really fun, and we did that. It was a kids class as well.
I don't think I've ever done that. I've always
Yeah.
looked at like things like that and been like, how does that
Yeah.
actually get made?
Yeah, it's
See, I'm just
very
thinking
cool.
I'm thinking of, our daughter Maya, and she would
Well-
literally do anything
Yeah.
that was offered. She would do. She's up for
But here-
everything.
We want to do that. We just need some better
I think-
ideas. I think on like what times work. Maybe we're not offering them at the right times or
I
the
think
time of year.
what might even happen too is they spend kids, especially at the age like 8 to, or from the time they enter kindergarten to about 10,
Mm-hmm.
like they're still learning in that way. They can actually still learn in how schools are set up.
Sure.
Once you start to get into teenagehood, I think people start developing independent likes, dislikes, like what they're into. And I think the educational system really needs to adjust to like how that actually works in people's brain, because people start saying, I don't like school. And as soon as you say, I don't like school, they don't not like school, because you have mostly adults coming to your classes that
Yeah.
you're running, things that they're interested in,
Then they want to do that.
that they're
Yeah.
learning
Right.
from
Yeah.
experts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we need to take, I think, a different approach to how we're doing it, and approach each thing not as okay, these are the things you're supposed to know, and you need to pass a test, etc. You need to find out what people, 1, are good at, 2, are interested in, and then 3, what's actually going to be useful in society. That makes sense to continue
Sure.
to spend money on teaching, right? And I think it's an interesting experiment what you got going on there, in terms of what people really are, have interest in.
Yeah.
But I think it also why you need to look at those adults is that there's an opportunity to look at. And I don't know if the city's ever reached out to you or anything like this. I doubt that they have, right? Where they're like, this is a super interesting new thing that's happening, and we're going to revolutionize our education system here in Rochester. I doubt that's ever happened here, right? But or in any city, really. Maybe Seattle might. It's so rainy there. They got nothing to do but think, right? But like, all right, maybe we should do this in schools. Like, just like you used to have shop class, or you'd have home ec, and those were sort of dedicated, but take it in those directions, almost majors, but go out into the community, go work.
What's the most popular class that you have currently?
Oh, geez. I mean, improv is definitely, because we run that every month, and there's like 30 people
That's
in there.
That's a good class amount.
It's consistently popular, even throughout like the summer. Like I think last night we didn't have 30, but I think there was 24 or something like that. The max used to be 20, and then we just kind of upped it. And then that's consistently popular. Our calligraphy class. And then Anna Voss, who teaches our brush calligraphy class, she also teaches a pierogi making class.
Pierogies
And that
are
is,
delicious.
yeah.
That's a eclectic version of classes there.
Yes.
It's like pierogies and improv.
Yeah, and that's why it was difficult to explain our business to people at first because they were like, "I'm sorry, what do you do?"
It's whatever you dream of.
I'm
whatever
pretty
you
sure
dream
too,
of.
just
do you
to
wanna say?
toot my own horn, I'm pretty sure that almost all the cider classes have also sold
Yeah,
out.
yep, I think so. Yep.
So like
people-
how to make
Yes.
cider essentially.
Our cocktail making classes are always popular as well.
So and you see this online too with like the types of videos that are now becoming popular on YouTube. Like the desire to learn is there.
Yeah.
It's how it's being designed, I think, is garbage right now. It's like a business model, like the way that colleges are designing it. They're doing what you're doing, but they're also forcing you to take classes and stuff that and putting in their own version of it that people don't necessarily want, but have to get the accreditation of a degree. And I think we're going to fail as a society if we continue to like educate people in that way. And I think this is why I wanted to talk to you, because I think it's a concept, and I can't believe that you work there and you recognize that there is a need here in Rochester for something like that, because I think there is.
Yeah,
And-
sure.
And obviously your business has survived because of that.
Sure. Well, I certainly do also believe in the regular college experience as well for who it makes sense for. Obviously it doesn't make sense for everybody, and there's great trade schools and other things that people can do, without going to college, and it's certainly not necessarily something that's for everybody. But this is, I think, just one of those things where it's like, for me, when I did classes in college, I did not do well at online classes. I think I dropped out of all my online classes and signed up for the in-person version because I learned so much better being able to ask questions, interacting with everyone, just get to know the students in my class and that kind of a thing. If you're working on a project together, it's just easier to get together when you see each other.
I'm the same way with that too.
Yeah.
I can't the online stuff. I can't.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky for me. And I think that, but that's not for everybody, which is why, YouTube is great. And if someone can go online and learn how to knit on YouTube, that's great. But for the other person who needs someone to, physically show them how to do it in person.
Yeah, everybody learns differently, too. It's it's different, because the online stuff, I feel the same way. I don't feel like I'm actually in a class.
Yeah.
I feel very disjointed from anything that's going on.
But sometimes you just need to get started, and then you can say, okay, shoot, how did that go? And then you could go, maybe to YouTube and, check on the clipboard or something like that if you, forget something. But our teachers also provide resources like handouts, and most all of our teachers make themselves available after, if students have any question, email me anytime, text me, whatever, which is so nice.
I think it's great. I think there's a real hunger for just learning in general in humans, and most people nowadays too they tend to err on the side of everyone's so dumb, they don't want to learn, they want to just be watch videos, they just want to sit and do nothing, watch cat videos, right? That's what the
that's not true.
major thing
It's
is.
not-
I think people actually have
that's
a real interest in
not true,
learning,
because there's so much
And,
technology that just gives you information now. There's so many ways to learn, and
Right.
you have endless choices.
Yeah, and when I say a revolution in education, I don't mean putting it all online, because like you
Oh,
said,
sure.
that's definitely not the way most people learn. I
Right.
think learning from an expert in whatever they're doing
Yeah.
is the ideal way to in hands-on actually
Yeah.
doing it. Because I didn't learn how to run a bar by reading some book, right? I
Sure.
learned it by doing it. So
Yeah.
You didn't watch YouTube on that?
I actually did. That's
There was
how it
one
all
YouTube-
started.
There may have been a few
There was
things
one
that you
YouTube
saw.
video that was how to be successful, and that was the one that you
That was
watched.
it. Yeah.
That's
Well,
the one I
Danielle,
watched.
I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for trusting us to come out and
Yeah.
talk into some microphones that don't have an antenna attached to them that's going to a radio station, but it will be broadcast.
Cool.
And I had a blast.
Thank you so much.
All right, so Danielle, before we go here,
Yes.
we need some blatant businesswoman out of you.
Sure.
So what's the website? What are some things you want to promote?
Yeah, so rochesterbrainery.com is the website. You can check out our classes, how to take a class, teach a class. Information on space rental is there, becoming a member, all kinds of things like that. we are very active on social media. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find us at Rock Brainery, Rochester Brainery on Facebook. So those are all the ways to get a hold of us and find out about our classes. You can sign up for classes right online, read about the descriptions.
Yep.
Get in touch with
So
teachers.
anyone coming to visit Rochester, I highly suggest this is the best thing to do when you come here. Sign up for our Rochester Brainery class. It's something fun to do that you won't find pretty much anywhere else you're traveling. So we've got some UK listeners and some people in Sweden that are listening too. So if you're coming here and you want to do something fun, sign up for a cool class. Hang out with Danielle. She may not be there, but I'm going to say she's going to be there. So
She will be there waiting for
she's
you.
at every single class. She'll hang out with you afterwards.
4 places at once
Yep,
in one night.
Yep,
absolutely.
she'll become pen pals
She'll
with
be your
you.
own
Right.
guide.
But I will give you
No.
lots of Rochester recommendations.
There you
I'm
go.
happy to.
So restaurants and stuff she can recommend the best. So rockbrainery.com.
RochesterBrainery.com.
RochesterBrainery.com. And again, thank you for coming in, Danielle.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
You are listening to 100.9 FM WXIR in Rochester, New York.
Extreme Independent Radio.
Worldwide, you can find us online at 1009wxir.com.
Infiltrate Radio.